Joining me now is Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. Congressman, great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. What do you make of all of these antics from the Democrats?
What I make of it is that they don't know what they're doing, that they really don't have a message. They don't have a vision to give the American people. What are the actual policies they're talking about? They don't have those. And so they resort to this. Influencers of the State of the Union, Chuck Schumer looking like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. None of this stuff is really working. And that's because we're delivering for the American people, and Donald Trump is delivering on the promises that he made on the campaign trail.
I mean, I was thinking about, the SpaceX splashing down in the Gulf of America, and seeing this kind of out-of-the-world innovation, and I thought, well, this is something that would bring the country together, right? Shouldn't everyone celebrate the idea that we've got this kind of amazing innovation to go and get these two home, that they've been there for 9 months? Not so. I mean, you just don't see the Democrats marveling at the same things that the Republicans do. Are they not in touch with the people?
Well, Maria, I think the American people are actually celebrating a lot of these things. What SpaceX was allowed to do, getting those astronauts home, finally, something that the Biden and Harris administration failed to do. That's a wonderful thing. But the reason why the Democrats and their interests in media and other parts of the country are upset is because the basis of their entire ideology and their entire purpose in their party, which is the federal government and the largesse of the federal government, the bureaucracy of the federal government, the fact that that is now being touched and examined is a very threat to the thing they've been campaigning on for almost 2 generations in the United States. That's why they're upset.
Yeah.
They're not upset about the fact that our astronauts are home. They're upset that their baby, if you will, which is the federal government, is being examined for the first time. And that's to the benefit of the American people today and in the future of our country.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so, and yet they're attacking Musk as well as President Trump. Lawmakers, meanwhile, expected to work on implementing the Trump agenda through budget reconciliation once you all return from your recess next week. I want to get your take on where we are. Punchbowl is reporting that Republicans on the Senate Budget Committee will meet with the parliamentarian's office to get guidance on the current policy baseline or a scoring method that they can use to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. I spoke with North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer yesterday on this program, and he pushed back on House Republicans who say their budget plan is the only option. Watch.
The idea that somehow because they have a narrower majority in the House, the Senate has to do what the House wants to do. What their bill fails to do is really big. Their bill fails to make the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent law. If their bill was to pass, but we weren't able to make those tax cuts permanent, we'd be in the same position a few years from now. So I don't quite understand this pride of ownership, if you will, that the House has. We'll work out the differences, but it may end up being 3 or 2 different bills rather than one big bill. So I think both sides have to be respectful of the challenges that the other side has. But I also think a great big bill runs the greatest risk of failing.
Congressman, what about that? Is it easier to just do it in 2 bills so that you know that you can make those tax cuts permanent?
To be blunt, Maria, I really don't even care whether it's 1 bill or 2 bills. I mean, at this point, what we have to do is get the constructs of the entire agenda done. And tax policy, I do agree with a lot of the senators, and there's a lot of House members that do agree that we should be using the current policy baseline. The Tax Cut and Jobs Act is current law in the United States. I mean, it's current policy. That's what we're working under. So we should use that to score it. But the broader context of this deal to get the president's agenda done is going to be mandatory spending cuts and mandatory spending reforms. And as long as we have the leadership in both chambers and we have members in both chambers who take that matter seriously and do everything we can to bend the long-term cost curve in the United States, the deal will happen, whether it's 1 bill, 2 bills, 4 bills. That part's mostly irrelevant. It's about the spending side so that you can bend the long-term cost curve of the United States, take the pressure off of the Treasury bond market, which is having pressure because of the rate of borrowing that we have in the United States. And so as long as we get that piece done, tax policy will all get done. We won't have a problem.
All right. Well, we'll be watching all of that. Meanwhile, Congressman, your fellow Florida Representative Vern Buchanan is endorsing your run for governor of Florida. He says this: my friend Byron Donalds is a fearless conservative and MAGA patriot. I worked closely with him in Congress and know from personal experience his fight, tenacity, and effectiveness. Congressman, what can you tell us about the race? What is the state of the race? And you've been on the campaign trail now. What are you hearing from constituents? What do they want to see, perhaps, with you as governor?
Well, look, it's early and it's a long way to go. Really happy to have the support of my colleague, Vern Buchanan. Vern's been a great friend. We've worked on a lot of issues on Capitol Hill. The state of the race right now is people are excited. We have a lot of work to do over the next year and a half, but a lot of Floridians are excited. We're getting a lot of support very, very fast. I'm very excited to have the president's support. His early supporters really put a wind in my sails to be Florida's next governor, but we take nothing for granted. We're going to work incredibly hard to earn the support and really the endorsement of all of Florida's voters.
And you've talked about insurance a lot being a key issue for voters. What else do you want to make sure people understand about you, Congressman?
Well, before politics, Maria, my career was in financial services, banking, and insurance. And so whether it's tackling our insurance issues, our insurance crisis in Florida, the transportation issues that we do have to resolve, which is a good problem to have in a way. People have chosen Florida because of great leadership by Governor DeSantis and way our state has been governed over the last really 20 years. And so because of that, you got to expand our transportation networks and find new ways to make it more seamless and accessible for all Floridians. But at the end of the day, we're going to be focused on the Constitution. We're going to be focused on economics and sound policy in order for Florida to continue to be the best state in the country.
All right, we'll leave it there. We'll be watching your work, Congressman. Good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.